Happy Friday, my friends. Here we are again. We're on to Jeremy. Jeremy and his friend Joe. It's been a while since we heard about Jeremy, but Jeremy and his friend Joe that he met, the one that also believes in the Bigfoot, are getting close, and they are finding pictures and flyers and stuff. So here's the part where he's heading over to Joe's house. Did you see it? Joe's familiar voice asked. Saw it. I'm on my way. He almost made it out the door when his mother drifted out of her office. A pencil anchored in a bun on her head, and her eyes were looking very dreamy. Jeremy, she said, where are you going? Cub Scouts, he said. Susan frowned. Are you still a Cub Scout? Jeremy had actually never been a Cub Scout. Absolutely, he said. I'll be back late. He ran out the door, jumped on his bike, and pedaled down the street toward Joe's house as fast as he could. Her street, normally empty, was unusually crowded. A van that read Standish Plumbers, Dump It On Us, was parked at the curb next to the gray sedan and a motorcycle. Jeremy dropped his bike on her lawn and went inside without knocking, knowing that the door would be unlocked and that Joe would be in her chair on the sun porch. She already pulled up the flyer on the biggest of her 4 computer screens and was doing a point-by-point comparison of the 2 images. Do we know where it's from? Jeremy asked as he tried to look over Joe's shoulder while catching his breath. All the site said was upstate New York. The picture was uploaded on an iPhone with a New York City area code, Joe said without turning away from the screen. How do you know that? Sometimes the thing that Joe did or found out did not make entirely any sense to him or sounded legal. She tweaked her ponytail, leaning closer to the screen. I have my ways. I already forwarded it to Gary. Gary Herdison was an online friend of Joe's, a PhD student in California, just as obsessed with Bigfoots as they were. He should be able to compare the anatomy. He'll tell us if this is a real deal or just a kid in a costume. Our job, she said, is to figure out who posted this picture and from where. And how do we do that? Do we call every single cell phone in New York City area code and say, hey, did you happen to take a photograph of a Bigfoot in upstate New York recently? Jeremy frowned that Joe had a better plan. And he wasn't wrong. I've been in Google Cache for hours. The image was first uploaded to Blabber. It's one of those apps where kids in high school and college can post things about their professors or other kids. It's all supposed to be anonymous, Joe said, her tone turning sarcastic, her fingers curving into her air quotes. Supposed to be. Joe would be sharp-tongued, and she saved most of her scorn for people who didn't understand the internet the way that she did. A group that included the vast majority of humanity, as well as Jeremy himself. It's also supposed to automatically delete after 60 seconds, but you know how that one goes. Jeremy nodded, and he and Joe recited together, on the internet, everything lives forever. So anyhow, Joe continued, all we have to do now is find the Blabber account that posted it. How are we going to do that? Joe just smiled. Jeremy wondered, maybe for the 100th time, whether Joe knew people in the government or whether her father or anything he heard moving around the house but had never seen, but maybe he was some kind of spy. Leave that part to me. Meanwhile, your job is to monitor the net, especially anything coming from this region. The picture was uploaded from somewhere in upstate, Jeremy said. That could be anywhere here, all the way up from Albany to Vermont. Joe was unperturbed. We have to start somewhere, so why not look close to home? We know that there are Bigfoots in Standish. We know that Standish is upstate New York. Thus, it's not impossible and maybe even likely that the picture was shot somewhere nearby. She smiled, her sarcastic half smile, and sometimes you get lucky, or so I've heard. Jeremy wondered what that meant. When Joe turned back to her screen, he started mentally listing the chat rooms he'd hang out on, the Twitter accounts he'd check, and the blogs he'd been visiting. Maybe I'll walk around the forest a little, he said. If there's a tribe somewhere nearby, we think, they might be freaking out if we know that we're onto them and that they've been photographed. Excellent. Joe's voice was crisp and Jeremy felt his face flush with pleasure. As soon as I hear from Gary about what we're looking at, I'll let you know. Together, they spent the next hour in the back cave, with Joe scrolling through phone numbers, cross-referencing them with Blabber accounts, and Jeremy Googling for other repostings and comments beneath the flyer. When Joe's father called her to dinner. Jeremy told her goodbye and walked towards his bike, thinking he'd go for a long way home through the forest, when his cell phone rang. Blocked number, read the screen. Curious, he lifted up the phone. Hello? Jeremy. The voice was an old man's kind of voice, cracked and whispery, but somehow still powerful, like it belonged to someone who was used to having people listen and do what they want and do what they said. Keep looking. Keep looking for what? His heart was beating harder and his cereal was sloshing uncomfortably in his belly. Keep looking where? The forest, said the voice. The lake. Pay attention to the school. You're very close, boy. Closer than you know. Who is this? He realized later than he should have that he and Joe weren't the only people who'd seen the flyer, not if it was floating around online. And if this is about Bigfoot, you should talk to Joe too. The man made a rude, dismissive noise. Never mind the girl. She'll just slow you down. Keep looking. His voice sounded scary and greedy when he whispered, We're almost there. What do you mean? Why do you care? Because they're everything. Because they're everything, the old man whispered. The key to everything. The line went dead. Jeremy stared at the phone, then picked up his bike and gave a shocked yell when it fell into pieces in his hands, as if every bolt had been unscrewed precisely to the point of it coming undone. The wheels were rolling off in opposite directions. The seat posts and frame fell to the ground, and Jeremy was left standing there holding only his handlebars. Hearing that ancient, scratchy, greedy voice in his head saying, because they're everything. So now apparently he's going to go off into the woods. Let's see what he finds. I wonder who that old scruffy voice was. We never heard about that yet. So I don't know. What do you think? Jeremy's onto it. I wonder if they're going to find him. I wonder what's going to happen. Stay tuned. I'll be reading again on Monday. Have a great weekend. I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.